All right, it is time for the grand finale eyeshadow palette declutter video. Hello and welcome if you are new here. My name is Rachel, and if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. You don't have to tell me twice. I get it. And this is more of like a eyeshadow palette collection video, and I declutter one or two here or there. This is not a big giant decluttering half my palettes video. That's not really how my declutters work. I do periodically throughout the year declutter products as I go, but I do like to do a collection video at the end of the year just to show you what's in my collection. I always love getting a peek into people's eyeshadow palette collections. I don't know about you. All the eyeshadow palettes that I do declutter, if they are lightly used or new, I do pass them on to family and friends. If they are old and expired, I throw them out because that's kind of gross. Any of the products that I did receive in PR, 99% of the time, I do say it. If I missed saying it while I was editing the video, I did pop up on the corner of the screen the letters PR, and I also popped up affiliate codes for the brands that I do have codes with. And if I missed them or anything like that, or if you need it for reference, my affiliate codes are always listed down below in the description box. If you're wondering about my nails, I get them done at a salon. I have a gel polish with a chrome powder on top, so I can't tell you exactly what color they are. And I think that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoy the video. All right, so we've come to the eyeshadow palettes, which is definitely the biggest collection in my collection. And I'm pretty sure I said this in the intro, but I don't presume I'm gonna declutter hardly any palettes. I just uploaded a palette declutter a couple months ago. I can link it down below in the description box, but yeah. So let's start off with my high-end palettes, my Natasha Denona palettes. I've got a lot of them. So here we go. So I have the I Need a Nude palette. This came out this year. One of my favorites. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It is a true neutral palette. Gosh, honestly, what else can I say besides I love it? It's beautiful. The mattes from Natasha Denona are just super easy to use, blendable, buttery, and I like all the different neutrals / rosy tones that you get in here for the mattes, and then the shimmers in this are really beautiful, twinkly. We have a couple of different formulas, and I think her MIDI palette formula now has improved over the older MIDI palettes that she's had in the past. By the way, I'm not getting rid of any Natasha Denona palettes. This is the Glam Face palette. I have mine in the light colorway. I really like this a lot. It comes with 5 eyeshadows and 2 cheek products, a highlighter, and a cream blush. The cream blush is nice. It's a little drier than I would like, but I like it. And then the highlighter is absolutely beautiful. And the shimmers in this is the first time I think I tried these. The shimmer formula from Natasha Denona really improved. They're very sparkly, very wet looking on the eyes. And the mattes are really, really nice. Then I have the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. If you watched my palette ranking last year, this came up very high, very, very high in the palettes that I tried last year. I love this one. It is a perfect mix, in my opinion, of a neutral palette with some pops of color. We've got deep, we've got mid-tone, we've got light, we've got really beautiful shimmers. We have a multi-chrome in here called Vision that goes from green to purple. We have a matte black, which I love. Love the different variety of shimmers in here, different formulas. Love it. So obviously keeping it like I just said. We have the Glam palette. I like this. It's not my favorite Natasha Denona palette. It is a little bit more in terms of the shimmers on the subtle side, which her older MIDI palettes tend to have more subtle shimmers, which is fine. Sometimes I'm not hating on a subtle shimmer, but I do like it. This is the Xenon palette, which is the newest palette of hers that I have. Talked about this in a palette ranking video recently where an optometrist commented on my video saying that this is kind of giving the dress that's either white and gold or blue and black, depending on how your eyes adjust. I don't know anything about optometry, but basically what I'm saying is I see gray, black, white, silver. That's all I see. I don't see blue. I don't see pink. And I think it's just my eyesight. I know a lot of people say there's pinks and blues. I don't see that. So it's formula-wise, a beautiful palette, but in terms of color story, not my favorite. Then we have the Yucca palette. This is also a new palette for her that came out this year. I love the packaging, like the ombre yellow green, and I really like this color story. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love greens. I love neutrals. So you're getting both greens and neutrals. I don't like the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona, and 2 of the shades are cream to powder. That is kind of the only downside I would say to this, but otherwise really gorgeous. I have the bronze palette, which is an older palette, but I still really enjoy this one. I love a bronze eye. I love a warm tone neutral palette, which is what this is giving. It's pretty shimmer heavy, and a lot of the shimmers do look pretty similar on the eyes. I would say that's a downside, but otherwise I like it. This is the Love palette, and I really like this one a lot. But again, the shimmers aren't my ultimate favorite shimmers that she's come out with, but I still like them. It's a really pretty pinky Valentine's Day themed palette. And then I have one of her larger palettes. This is the Biba palette. I was pretty disappointed in this, if I'm gonna be honest with you. This is like a $129 palette, but I only paid under $20 for it because I had points, I had a gift card, and it was on sale. So I'm not complaining. I really love the mattes in this. The mattes perform beautifully, but the shimmers and the cream to powder in this are not my favorite formulas. They're a little bit more on the subtle side. So, you know, it's fine. It's whatever. And then I have a whole bunch of her minis. So I love the minis from Natasha Denona. My favorite one is the Mini Star. It is just absolutely beautiful. There's something very special about this palette. We've got 2 really gorgeous differing mattes, and we have 3 really beautiful shimmers. And then we have the Mini Biba palette, which I really like this. I think it's really nice. But again, we have a cream to powder plus 3 beautiful mattes and 1 shimmer. So I do like how many mattes there are. I always prefer a matte heavy palette, but I really like this one. I think it's really pretty. Then my other favorite one is the Mini Nude. I did wear this on my wedding day. The 2 mattes are contrasting in depth, which is beautiful. All 3 shimmers are very different while still kind of working together. There's something just so special about the looks that come out of the Mini Nude. It's one of my favorites. Then I have the Mini Starlet. This just came out this year. I think this is really pretty. Definitely more of a mid-tone to light palette. So if you are looking for depth, you are definitely going to have to pull something else in. But with the minis from Natasha Denona, I actually really enjoy like mixing and matching them. So that's something to keep in mind, but I do think this is very pretty and I really enjoy it. This is the Mini Zendo, which I did also pick up this year. It went on sale, and that's kind of, I wait for the older minis to go on sale before I pick them up. And I can definitely tell these shimmers are the old formula because they are, again, not really sparkly, not really special. They're just kind of standard shimmers that are a little bit heavier, a little thicker on the lid. So this isn't my favorite one. I still like it, but not my favorite. Then we have the Mini Love. This for a long time was my favorite mini. It is really beautiful. I like that you're getting a light matte and a deep matte, so you can deepen it up. You have an inner corner shade. You have 2 fun options for the lid. Really beautiful. The Mini Gold is very unique. I do like this one, a little grungier, a little bit more green leaning, although we do have like a gold shimmer. We have a dark shimmer, 2 dark shimmers, and 2 contrasting kind of olivey leaning mattes. Then we have the Mini Bronze. Like I said, I love me a matte heavy palette. 4 mattes and 1 shimmer, and I think this complements the bronze, like the Midi Bronze, well, because the Midi Bronze has so many shimmers. Love warm neutrals anyway. These 2 last ones are my least favorite. This is the Mini Metropolis. It came broken, unfortunately, so I don't really get use out of this shade. I mean, if I'm feeling adventurous and want to use a loose shadow, I will use it. But this shade is like a blue leaning green, which is just not my favorite color to wear, especially when it comes to like a deep shimmer. But the mattes here are nice. This isn't bad quality. It's just color story wise, not my favorite. And then this is the very first Natasha Denona palette I ever bought, the Mini Lila. Definitely can tell that the formulas in this are older, but I still like it. I still think it's pretty. I like that there really is like a purple look and then a very neutral look here. So yeah, love all my minis. All right, next up, let's talk about Anastasia Beverly Hills, another brand that I have quite a few palettes from. They kind of started my love of eyeshadows back when the Modern Renaissance came about. That was like kind of my gateway into having a makeup obsession. I actually no longer have the Modern Renaissance. I did Declutter It last year. But I've got the Cosmos palette here, which I did pick up this year. I really like this palette. I think it's really nice. You've got really mostly neutral mattes with some pops of shimmers. I think some of the shimmers are better than others. And I definitely would have liked maybe one colorful matte, like a purple or I don't know, something a little bit more poppy, but I really like the quality of this and I do enjoy this palette a lot. Another one that I got this year is the, what is this called? Fall Romance. This one I didn't love. Not one of my favorite palettes that I tried this year. I felt like the mattes were really thin, which is a change from what I've experienced with the brand. These two are the first palettes that I've bought from the brand in years though. So, I mean, maybe their formulas have changed. And some of these shimmers just are not, I just don't like them. Like this shade Divine is very dry and it's listed as a metallic. And I don't think it's a metallic. So I'm not impressed with this palette quality-wise. Color story-wise is really pretty, but I wasn't impressed with the quality. I have the Soft Glam, which is a beautiful go-to neutral palette for me. It's an OG classic. I love the old Anastasia formula where the mattes are very pigmented. Okay, they're not really, not user-friendly, but still very beautiful. The Sultry is a gorgeous one. I just put this in my winter palette favorites. It is just beautiful for like holiday time, glam occasions. It's the old formula where the mattes are super pigmented. The shimmers are like kind of standard metallics, but still really pretty. I have the Jackie Aina palette. Yes, I still have the packaging, like the outer carton packaging. I don't know why, but here is the palette. Oh, I love this actual packaging where it's like a faux snakeskin iridescent, and the color story inside is gorgeous. Just really beautiful jewel tones, kind of richer, deeper tones. And this was the color story when it first came out. I was like, wow, like this is something. This is something special. And even to this day, I do feel like it's unique. Another collaboration palette I have from ABH is the Carly Bible palette. I think the packaging is really cute on this as well. And this one is definitely more light to mid-tone. A lot of people had complaints about this palette when it came out, but I actually really got a lot of use out of it. I used it a lot. The shimmers in this are really pretty. The mattes are good, like good quality ABH mattes. Really pretty. I would say the least used palette from ABH that I have is the Alyssa Edwards palette, but I keep this around just for like a merch situation because I love Alyssa Edwards. She's my favorite drag queen, and so I want to keep this for the memories. But I definitely have used this a handful of times, and I didn't love the formula, if I'm going to be honest with you. And the color story is just a little kind of bright for me. Even though there are some pops of neutrals, I just didn't love the formula of the mattes especially. I thought they were a little thinner, a little bit harder to work with, but I want to keep it because I'm crazy and I'm a makeup collector, and that's just that. And then my last palette from ABH is the ABH Norvina Volume 5 palette. Absolutely love this palette. It is a gorgeous purple palette. And it's got other tones as well. It's not just purple, but obviously quite a few purples, very strongly purple. I think the mattes in this are just gorgeous, like super easy to use. The shimmers in this are really pretty. There is a pressed glitter, which is not my favorite thing, but the rest of the shimmers are just really wet looking on the lid. This is quite a hefty, large palette, but I really love it. I have both of the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palettes. So this is volume 1 and this is volume 2 Rose. I'm gonna keep both of these. It is so hard with the reflective packaging. I really enjoy the Patrick Ta, the original one. It is a gorgeous neutral palette. The mattes just are very, very blendable. The shimmers in this are a little drier, more like topper shades. And then they have 2 cream shadows in here, which I really like. They definitely look kind of dried out now because I've had them for a couple of years, but I'm going to keep this palette because I really do love it. And then the Rose palette I actually prefer. I think they improved the shimmer formula a little bit in this one. The shimmers are a little bit creamier, still on that PC toppery side. And they actually have a duochrome as well that goes from gold to pink. The mattes, again, very blendable. I love the cream shadows. Really love these palettes a lot. I only have one Too Faced palette, but this is the Italian Spritz palette. I used to own one other palette from them, but I did declutter it last year. I like this palette. I think it's really nice. I think it is clearly a good mainstream, everyday, anybody can use it and get a good result like the mattes are. Not overly pigmented, very easy to blend, very easy to use, and they're mostly neutral mattes with some pops of color in the shimmer, but also some neutral shimmers as well. I like this palette. I think it's great. I love it for like spring, summertime. I think the color story lends itself to that. I like it a lot. I have only one palette from Huda Beauty. It is the Rose Quartz. The actual packaging is stunning, and oh my goodness, this is definitely one of my favorite high-end palettes, like mainstream palettes in my collection. The mattes in this are really, really easy to use, but the shimmers are honestly some of the best shimmers that you can get in a mainstream palette, in my opinion. Like, they're just so incredibly special, so shiny, just honestly so beautiful. I need to pull this palette out again and use it. It's been so long, so absolutely gonna keep it. No question about it. I only have 2 palettes from Pat McGrath, and I'm keeping them only because they were so expensive. I don't really think that they're anything overly special, if I'm gonna be honest with you. This is the, where's the name? Blitz Astral Quad Iconic Illumination. So it is just a quad of 4 shimmer shades, and they're pretty. I like them. The actual packaging of this is very heavy, and it feels very luxurious, I will say that. And the shimmers in this are pretty. Like, I like them. I think they're pretty. I don't think that they're worth full price. I did not pay full price for this. This one here is very, very pretty, like super sparkly. I don't really reach for this. I probably should make an effort to reach for it because I do want to keep it. And then I have one of her holiday palettes. This one's from, I think, 2021, I want to say. Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey. Again, I have not reached for this in a very long time. It is a very shimmer heavy palette. None of the shimmers in this palette are her special Blitz Astral formula, but I think the shimmers are really pretty, like very wet looking on the lids. There's only 4 mattes in this palette and the rest are shimmers, and I like this palette. I think it's nice. I don't think it's anything overly special. Like, I definitely prefer some of my like indie brand palettes, although I think Pat McGrath is considered an indie brand, but yeah, it's cute. I like it. I'm gonna keep it because, like I said, I bought it and it was not cheap. But yeah, I have one Melt Cosmetics palette. This is the Electrip palette, and I did purchase this year. This was my very first time trying the brand, and I think it's a good palette. I don't think it's anything overly spectacular. The mattes in this are just okay. Like, they're a little bit more on the thin side. I do really like the looks that I got out of this palette, but I think the shimmers are a little bit better than the mattes. It was okay. That's kind of where I stand with it. I know a lot of people love the brand, and a lot of people said that this isn't really the usual Melt formula, so I did talk about it in a video, and I did get a lot of recommendations from you for other palettes that I might want to try, so I will consider that for the future, but of course I'm going to still keep that palette. I have one quad from Viseart. This is the Petites Fours Violetta. I love this little quad. I think it is so nice to travel with. You have one duochrome shimmer, you have one standard shimmer that's dark, and you have a matte and then a matte with sparkle in it, like a sequin shade. I really love the looks that I created with this, and it's itty bitty tiny. I think it's so cute. The quality of the shadows is very good, so of course gonna keep that. I have one palette from Dose of Colors. This is the Eternal Love that they did in collaboration with Trevor. I did talk about this in the worst makeup that I tried this year, and unfortunately, this one just didn't work out for me. So I actually think I am going to declutter and pass this on to someone else. Maybe someone else in my life would get a little bit more use out of this, and I've only used it a handful of times, obviously, because it's so new to my collection. So I will be passing this on. I'll keep it for the video, like the ranking video, but once I film that video, I will pass this on and declutter it. In this drawer, I also have some like indie brands as well, so I'm just gonna get to those right now, might as well. So this is the Ofra and Samantha March Life's a Draft palette. Oh my goodness, when this first came out, I was obsessed. I used it all the time. I love purple eyeshadow, and I really enjoyed these purples. They are definitely more on the subtle side, like both the mattes and the metallics. They're not ultra like pigmented or anything, but they create a really soft purple look. I really like all 3 of the cheek products. They work really well for me, so I am going to keep this one. This is the first year that I tried Sigma, and I tried this palette. This is the Sigma New Mod Mini. I freaking love this palette. I love the formula and I love the curation of colors and I love the size. It is just this slim little tiny palette, which would be perfect for traveling. I love the 4 mattes that you get varying in depth. And the mattes are perfect in terms of pigment, not overly pigmented, super easy to use. And then you have 3 different shimmers, one of them being a duochrome. And the shimmers in this palette are not like overly impactful, but they create a really pretty shine to the eyes. I feel like this would appeal to a lot of people. I really, really like this palette a lot. And then the other palette I tried from the brand this year is the Beauty and the Beast palette. Ooh, honestly, absolutely stunning. The quality of the shadows, I would say this has a little bit more pigmented of mattes. And that also might be because the mattes in this are definitely mid-tone to deep. There's no real light mattes. And the shimmers are just beautiful. Some of the shimmers are a little bit more toppery. Some are standard metallics, but absolutely phenomenal quality. And I love neutrals. I love neutrals, so I really enjoy this palette a lot. Definitely looking forward to trying more from Sigma. I think I am going to declutter these 2 palettes from Ladybug Glow. Not that they're bad at all. I did receive both of these in PR from the brand. I just don't feel like I'm really gonna have time to reach for these again with all the new stuff coming into my collection. And I thought the quality was good, but not like spectacular. And there are just other palettes in my collection I'll reach for over these. And I wanna pass them on while they're fairly new so that someone else could get more use out of them. But this is the Galaxia Magica palette. The mattes in this brand, from this brand, are good, not spectacular, and the shimmers are very impactful, super pretty. Some are a little more textured, some are a little bit more smooth. So we'll put that, again, I'm gonna keep it for the palette ranking purpose, and then I will declutter them. This is the Pond Lily palette. This one is a little bit more like murky, grungy, some greens, some purples, really pretty, but again, just not something I'm really gonna reach for. But one palette from Ladybug Glow that I am going to keep is the Everyday Sparkle palette. This one, to me, like the actual color story calls to me a little bit more. It is a true neutral palette. It's an 8-pan palette, and I really wanna try this one out. I have not used this yet. They did send it to me in PR quite a while ago, and as I probably said in the intro, I have an alarming amount of palettes that I've not tried yet. Try to be gentle in the comments to me. I'm trying my best here, but I definitely want to try this one out. It's one that I think just appeals to me the most with the color story. One of my most favorite indie brands is Simply Posh. I feel like they have phenomenal color stories, phenomenal formulas, and I just really love the brand. I think they do such great work. So I'm gonna go in order of what I tried. So my first palette from them was the Berry Icy palette, and this is a beautiful like blue, purple, pinky red palette. When I first tried this, I was like, oh my goodness, how has nobody told me how much I need to try the brand? The mattes are just like very blendable, very easy to use, super pretty, and all of the shimmers are smooth yet sparkly. And that is my favorite type of formula, where I can get that sparkle without it being chunky, without it getting tons of fallout. So this is my first experience from the brand. I did purchase that one myself. These other 3 I did get in PR from the brand. So this is the Citrus Punch palette. This color story calls to me so much. I love warm tones. I love greens. I love bright colors like this, especially for the summertime. And I think that this palette, the shades are pressed a little harder in the pan, so they don't pick up as nice, but I still like it. I still really enjoy it. Then they also sent me Fairy Tale Fairies, which I have yet to try. I have not had time to try it out, but this is going to be a really pretty like pastel palette for the springtime. I'm looking forward to using that. And then their newest palette is the Cozy Cabin palette. Oof, this palette is absolutely stunning. I love the tones in here, and I love how they lay out their palettes with their light mattes up top, their mid-tone to deep mattes on the bottom, and then all of their shimmers in the middle. Most of these shimmers are duochromes. They're just absolutely beautiful. And then the last brand from this drawer is Cosmic Brushes. They are rebranding to Cosmic Beauty. So I have 4 palettes from the brand. The newest one that I have is the Gothic palette. This is just like a beautiful monochromatic purple palette that has different tones, and I've only used this once, so I don't really have my full thoughts on it. I am still in the process of testing it as of the moment of filming, which will probably be pretty far ahead of when I actually post it. So I may have already had my final thoughts on it, but really beautiful. I love purple shadows, and I like the size of this one that's a little bit smaller. And then the Muse palette is my favorite palette from the brand. It is gorgeous, like a neutral palette with a twist. We've got quite a few neutrals in here, but we have also some greens. We have some more like mauve-y purples, just absolutely stunning. The Cosmic Brushes matte formula is top notch. Very pigmented, very blendable, very beautiful. And their shimmers are also really wet looking on the lids. And they usually put at least one special shade per palette in each of their palettes. This one is the Delicious Delights palette. This came broken. I tried to repress it back into the pan and I kind of failed. So that's what that's all about. And unfortunately, it's kind of migrated into this shade. This is like an iridescent duochrome. They have a multi-chrome here. I like this. I would use this more as a companion palette, especially because the darkest shade in the palette did break. But I do enjoy this one as well. And then my first palette from the brand was the Serenity palette. This is the one that put them on the map. Just a gorgeous like green, blue, purple color story. I would say color story wise, it's not my absolute favorite, but very, very good quality. Very good quality, especially the mattes are just top notch. Okay, so I have an alarming amount of ColourPop palettes. I'll tell you right now, like a lot of ColourPop palettes. So let's start off with the mega palettes. We'll go from largest to smallest. How's that in terms of the palettes that I have? So this is the So Jaded palette from Kathleen Lights and ColourPop. I've not really gotten use out of this lately, but when it first launched, holy moly, I thought it was the most beautiful palette ever. And I still think the color story is unique in my collection. So I will keep this one around. The Bare Necessities I got in PR from the brand and I've not used it yet. It is a gorgeous large neutral palette that I think I'm really gonna enjoy. So I have to give this one a shot for sure. The Aurora Struck palette, oh my goodness, love the packaging. And I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised when I saw the inside of this. The pictures on Instagram, I thought was so beautiful. Matches the outside very well. And I really like this palette a lot as well. Very pretty. I would say of the mega palettes that I have, this is my favorite, the Smoke and Hot palette. One of my favorite ColourPop palettes in general. If you don't like a warm neutral look, don't buy this palette because that's really all you're gonna get out of this. But I think the mattes in this are very good quality. The shimmers, there's a few different shimmer formulas in here. We have more like standard ColourPop shimmers. We have a little bit more blingy. And then we have these glitter hybrid formulas, which aren't like my ultimate favorite, but I do like them. So really enjoying that palette. And then we'll get to the, how many pans are in this? 12 pan palettes. So this is the Cabana Club. I got this in a mystery box and I like it. I like it. I've used it a handful of times. It is a very pretty, like, you know, summer color story, if you will. Nightmare Before Christmas. I have not used this palette yet. Yeah, I know. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. It is my favorite Disney movie, and I think this color story is really pretty. So I'm looking forward to using this one. Let me know your thoughts on it. If you have used this, what are your thoughts? Malibu Barbie is another palette that honestly I've only used a handful of times. I did also get this in a mystery box. It looks really pretty. From what I remember, I think this is an okay palette in terms of quality. I find when ColourPop does this format of palette that the shimmers aren't as impactful. So that's just kind of my thoughts. But I have to use this a few more times. I've literally only used it like once or twice. This is a palette that I got in PR this year. This is the ColourPop Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon for Love and Justice palette. I don't know anything about Sailor Moon. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the show or any of that. But this color story is really pretty. It's definitely more light to mid-tone in both the shimmers and the mattes, which I just prefer a little bit more of a gradient in my mattes, but I like it. I think it works. The shimmers in this are really pretty, like super ethereal, very 90s feeling to me. There is a Super Shock here, or actually it's one of those glitter hybrids, so it's a little bit more of that PC kind of feel. Really pretty. I think it's a pretty palette. I actually think I'm gonna declutter this one. This is the At Forest Sight from Raw Beauty Christie and ColourPop. I've only used this a handful of times and I don't really see myself reaching back into this. I feel like I could pass this on to someone. It's barely been used. It's very lightly used. It's very pretty. I think it's a really nice palette, but I I don't really feel like I need it in my collection, so I am gonna pass it on. This palette is one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. This is the Lush Life palette. I think the formula in this is very good, like exceptional. Good ColourPop mattes like usual, but the shimmers in this are just super wet, like super impactful. I love the mix of neutrals and pops of color. This like bright lime green is so pretty. I'm so sad that they discontinued this palette. It's a very pretty tropical vibe palette. Plush Like Me is another one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. So stunningly beautiful. I love the outside with the texture and the velvety details. And then on the inside, we have more of like a cool toned neutral palette. It's a 90s inspired palette apparently. And I really like these palettes from ColourPop that are a little bit weighted, that have the details on the front, details on the mirror. I feel like they're just like extra good in terms of quality. So definitely gonna keep this one around. My top two favorite ColourPop palettes are these two, the Limoncello and the Star Wars palette, both very different palettes. The Limoncello palette is the same texture and same format as the Plush Like Me, where it is weighted. It has texture on the front. It has elements on the mirror. It's just like the same, I think the same quality, where the mattes are really pretty, buildable, easy to use, and the shimmers are just like extra special. Not like super impactful, but really twinkly and like just really beautiful and understated. It's a gorgeous neutral palette with a twist. Love it. I love the theme. I love the packaging. I love it. It's one of my favorites. And then the Star Wars palette, I also love. I think they did a phenomenal job capturing the movie poster in eyeshadow form, where it still makes sense as an eyeshadow palette. It's still, quote, wearable. Things go together. I think the shimmers in this are stepped up from the usual shimmer formula from ColourPop. I like that there's a mix of neutrals as well as color. Really gorgeous. Just a gorgeous palette. The 1111 palette came out this year. I did receive this one in PR. This is a really pretty neutral palette. I think that the mattes are pressed kind of harder in the pan, so they are a little bit more on the subtle side, but I love me a neutral palette. I love all the different depths and different tones of the mattes. We have a sequin shade, and we have several different options for shimmers. This is one of those glitter hybrid formulas. Really pretty. I think it's really nice. The Naruto palette, I also received this one in PR. I don't know anything about Naruto, and when I did my video and I tried to pronounce a lot of the the names, I epically failed, and some people in the comments let me know of that. This is a pretty palette. It's not my favorite. Like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's nice. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. The Alice in Wonderland through, I think this is called, oh, it's just called Lost in Wonderland. Love the packaging. Love the packaging on this whole collection. I think it's so freaking cute. And here is what it looks like. On the inside, it opens like a book. This kind of is very light, generally very light, which I prefer to have a gradient in my mattes from light to deep, but I am going to keep this one around just because it is so new to my collection. I did get some pretty looks out of it, but I'm probably going to use this more as like a companion palette than anything else. And then we have the Witching Hour palette. This was the second Hocus Pocus palette that they came out with, and I did receive this one in a mystery box that I purchased, and I think the quality of this is just okay. I think I can pass this one on. I don't really see myself reaching for it. I think the mattes are good, but again, with these square pans, I feel like the shimmers in this are just like, eh. Like, these two shimmers are good. These three are just kind of blah. And like, if I have a colorful shimmer, I want it to be shiny. Like, I don't want it to be subtle and soft. I'd prefer a subtle soft shimmer with a neutral shimmer, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna pass this one on. I don't really need it. Then I have a whole bunch of 9 pans. A whole bunch of 9 pans. So we have the Baroque palette. This is another one that I'm gonna pass on. I just feel like it was just okay. Sorry if there's background noise. My husband just walked in, and I gotta keep going here. This is gonna go on forever. So this is the Baroque palette. I definitely can get rid of this one. The shades in this look so similar, especially on the eyes. Like, there are so many repeated shades, and this is an old palette, and I can definitely tell through the quality of it that it's just not as good as their palettes that they've come out with in the past couple of years. So I'm definitely gonna pass this one on. Then I have a handful of their like plastic packaging 9 pans. So these first 2 I purchased myself from Target when they came out with their Target line. Fresh Greens and Mauve and Up. I like these palettes a lot. I think they're good quality. I think the mattes are good, like usual ColourPop mattes. And the shimmers, there's a couple of different kind of formulas, some shinier shimmers, some more subtle shimmers, standard shimmers, whatever. But I do like these. I do want to keep them. And then I got these 3 in PR from the I Wish You Were Here collection, I believe. So this is Weekend Mood, which is like a warm coral. The Feels, which is a green, brown, more grungy color story. And Daydreaming, which is a cool toned purple palette. These monochromatic plastic palettes from ColourPop I actually think are really good. I think they're nice quality. The Weekend Mood has one of these glitter hybrid shades in it, but they're good. I'm going to keep them around. I have 2 of the 9-pan, I have 3 of the 9-pan Star Wars palettes. I'm going to keep all 3 of these. I like them. I love the packaging on them. So he is so freaking cute, the child. He is so adorable. I want to squeeze his face. The Mandalorian is a really pretty neutral palette that is a little bit more, I don't know, grungy, I guess you could say. And I like the formulas in this. They're pretty. I'm going to keep it around. The Child palette is more of like a cool toned minty green palette. I did really enjoy the looks I got out of this palette. So I'll keep that one around. And then the C3PO palette is a really like a monochromatic gold, yellow gold, which matches him very well. But the quality of the shadows is very good. I like that there is a Super Shock up here in the corner. And I love me a neutral palette, so I will be keeping all 3 of these. This is another one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. This is the That's Taupe palette. It is a gorgeous cool tone neutral palette. I'm not one for cool tones, really. Like, I prefer warm tones, but if I want a cool tone neutral palette, this is definitely one that I go to, that I think about. It's just compact. It's got everything I need. Light to deep in the mattes, different tones in the shimmers. You have a Super Shock here. The quality is really good. I did talk about this recently, in like my winter palette favorites. I think it's very good. Definitely gonna keep it. I have these 2 palettes. They came out around the same time, and I believe I got both of these in a mystery box. The So Fly and the Glow Getter. Both really good. I will say that the mattes are pressed very hard in the pan, and the shimmers are a little bit more on the subtle side, but still really pretty. Like, I like these a lot. This one, I'm leaning towards decluttering just because of this shade. Like, I'm never going to use this shade. And 1 out of 9 shades not being used, like, why keep it around, you know? I think I will declutter the So Fly, but I'll keep the Glow Getter. This is the Hello Kitty and Friends palette. I kept this around through so many declutters simply for the packaging because I love Hello Kitty, and her as a snowman, like, how much more cute can we get? Not much more cute than that. So cute. And then look at her. Oh, she's so cute. This palette is very light to mid-tone. We've got 3 shimmers, we've got 3 mattes, and we've got 3 sequin shades, which I don't love sequin shades. And these shimmers are not really that special. They're, again, the square pan shimmers, which I find to be not as impactful. I think I need to let it go. I know it's like hard for me, but I'm not really gonna reach for this. Like, I don't love the actual color story or the quality. And even though she is adorable, I'm gonna let her go. I'm gonna let her go. I can't believe it. That is a shocker to me. I have 2 of the plastic old school 9-pan palettes. And honestly, I bought these and I've not used them. I've had them for a really long time and I've not reached for them. I'm gonna give it 1 more year. If I don't use these in a year, I have to get rid of them. But this is the Orchid You Not and the Wine and Only palette. These both, like, the color stories on these are calling to me. Like, I know if I use them, I'm gonna enjoy them. So I am gonna give these 1 more chance to use. And then I have all of these quads from ColourPop. They're very, very fragile, as you can tell. Like, this one just broke. I will say, I think that the actual packaging on this one, the whole thing just broke. Okay, well, here we go. I will say the quality on these, I think, is the best quality shadows that ColourPop has come out with. They are just all around absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I don't know how many of these are still available, but I don't think all of the quads are created equal. I did try some quads in some of the collections, and I didn't feel like they were as good as the ones I got. These 4 are from the original launch, like the very first launch that they came out with. So I have Mocktail, Sorbet, Creamsicle, and Citrus Fizz. This one is about to break as well. And then this is from the Zodiac collection, Never Tore Us Apart. Stunning, stunningly beautiful. Even though they're fragile and they break easily, can I even get the lid back on this one? Yeah, I have to get rid of this one because I can't even get the lid back on it. That is really unfortunate because it is beautiful. Even though these are very fragile, I think I am gonna keep them. I know it's stupid, but I just love these palettes. So I will keep these for them, and I'm gonna have to throw this one out because the cap won't even go back on it. That is so sad. All right, BH Cosmetics is another brand that I have quite a lot of palettes from, and honestly, quite a lot of palettes that I've not used. I went crazy when they were sold at TJ Maxx when they were going out of business or whatever, or filing for bankruptcy, that I just like panic bought a lot of their palettes and just have so many new palettes coming in all the time. I never got to them, but I'm gonna give these ones one more year again. Like if I don't use them by the time next year comes around, I have to get rid of them. So these 3 palettes I've not used. These are the Sweet Shop palettes. So I have Orange Sorbet, Bubblegum, and Cherry on top. Honestly, like I've swatched these and they swatch absolutely incredibly. Like look at how beautiful that is. I need to use that. Bubblegum is the blue palette, which if you've been here before, my New Year's resolution is to stop saying I don't wear blue eyeshadow, but I will say blue is my least favorite color to wear, but very gorgeous. And then I have Orange Sorbet, which is orange, which I love orange shadows. That is gorgeous. So I am gonna make an effort to use these this year. If I don't use them, they gotta go. And that's the end of that. I have these 3 Birthstone palettes, and I really like all 3 of these. I think they are all gorgeous. The quality of the shadows in these are very, very, very good. So I have Pearl for June, which is a really pretty neutral palette. All of these have a pressed glitter, which is not my favorite thing, obviously. I mean, maybe it's not obvious. I don't like pressed glitters. I don't use them. But all the rest of these shadows are just so pretty. Diamond is a really good companion palette. Again, minus this pressed glitter. All of these other shades are beautiful, and the shade Stunning is absolutely stunning, like a beautiful silver. And then my favorite one is Citrine. It is like a brown, yellow, mustardy, beautiful, beautiful neutral palette. So definitely want to keep all 3 of these. The 90s Remix palette I have not used, but this swatches absolutely incredibly. It is mostly like a cool tone neutral palette with some pops of purple. I need to use this year because it's gonna be nice. Like I just feel it in my bones. It's gonna be nice. Then I have a few of the Travel Series palettes. Amore in Amalfi. Really pretty neutral palette. I really enjoyed the looks that I've gotten out of this. It's a solid neutral palette. Like I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Party in Puerto Rico, I would say, is my least favorite of the ones I have in this travel series. I just don't feel like the shimmers are as impactful. And again, if I have like bright, fun shimmers, I want them to be a little bit more on the impactful side. And then Passion in Paris is a gorgeous, deep, like romantic color story. The quality of this is very good. This shade Louvre, like this white silvery shimmer, is so, so beautiful. I have 3 of the palettes from the Say It collection. I've not used this one, Do Not Disturb, but it is like a blue purple palette. Ooh, my goodness. Oh my goodness. These 2 palettes are incredible. The quality, 10 out of 10. This is one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection, Optimistic AF. Look at it. Just look at it. It is a gorgeous, warm tone palette. The shimmers are ultra wet looking. The mattes are very blendable, very beautiful. And then Low Key Love You is a little bit more red leaning. Absolutely gorgeous. Just gorgeous quality. Like if you put a high-end brand's label on this, I would not think twice about it. I would think that was correct. Then I have some of these Weekend Vibes palettes. Not used any of these. Not much has changed from last year. Blueberry Muffin palette. Really stunning. Blue is my least favorite color to wear, but I think I'm gonna enjoy this one. Weekend Vibes Mimosa. This one is a little bit more fun, a little bit more summery. So I'm looking forward to trying that one. And then Avocado Toast is their green palette, but it's not just green. It's got some other pops of color in there as well. I've swatched all of these palettes. They all swatch amazing. I've heard so many people talk so highly about them. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be really nice. Then I have the Desert Oasis palette. This is an OG classic. Like this may have been the first BH Cosmetics. No, I had the It's My Ray Ray collaboration palette. Do you guys remember that? If you have it or had it, let me know in the comments. But this is another one of the early BH Cosmetics palettes that I bought, and it is very good quality. Mostly a shimmer palette, and this side is meant to be like highlighters, but of course you can use them on your eyes. I really like this palette a lot. It's very pretty. And then I would say one of my favorite BH Cosmetics palettes is the Naughty palette. This was their Christmas palette for 2021, I want to say. Phenomenal quality, both in the mattes and the shimmers. There is a couple of pressed glitters here, unfortunately, but this is a large palette that I don't feel overwhelmed by. I feel like I can create so many looks so easily. It's stunning. It's so sad that it was discontinued because it's a phenomenal palette. So I have 5 palettes from Juvia's Place that I want to talk about. So the first one is the Saharan 2 by Juvia's Place. Fun fact, this one I decluttered 2 years ago and I pulled it out of the declutter pile and reclaimed it. I just love this. It gives me nostalgia because it's one of the first like palettes I bought when I was really getting into makeup. The shimmers in this are just so beautiful, and the mattes are very good as well. So I'm gonna keep this one around. And then I have the Nubian 3 Coral. I can get rid of this one. I don't like this one in terms of quality. I felt like the gray shades in this just didn't really show up, especially the mattes. They're so hard pressed in the pan. I don't need it. I don't really enjoy it. I think all the coral shades are pretty, but I can pass this one on. Then I have 3 of their 6-pan palettes. I've only ever used the Bronze Rustic. I've not used these other 2 yet, but the Bronze Rustic is beautiful. I love it because I love warm tone neutrals. I have the Blushed Rose. How pretty is that? And then I have the Berries. So gorgeous. So gorgeous. Keeping all 3. I have 3 palettes from Wicked Widow Beauty. I did receive all 3 of these in PR from the brand. My first palette from the brand was the Scissor Hands 2 palette. I did mention this in my favorites for winter. The quality of this is phenomenal. Like the shimmers are so like wet looking, shiny, impactful. The shade The Bogs is a gorgeous iridescent multichrome. I can't say enough good things, especially about the shimmers. I think the mattes are good too, but the shimmers are just like the standout for me from this brand. Although this isn't like my favorite color story, I do really love the quality of this. And then they came out with 2 smaller palettes this year. This is the Tea Time palette, which is a really pretty like springtime palette, really fun. Again, quality of the shades is good. The shimmers are just so beautiful. And then the Graveyard Smash is my favorite of the 3. Just the color story calls to me a little bit more. It's a little more grungy, but again, quality-wise, all very good. I only have 2 e.l.f. palettes, and both of them are collaboration palettes that I love. I think both of these palettes are wonderful. This is the Chipotle palette. If you know, you know. I talk about this a lot. This was one of the first times that a brand collaborated with a very random IP that had nothing to do with makeup. And I remember being shocked. Now I'm not shocked when anything happens, but this was the first time I was like, what? Chipotle? And I do love Chipotle, and I do love this palette, and I love the color story. I love the quality of the shadows. These are some of the best shadows e.l.f. has ever done, in my opinion. The mattes are really good, buttery, pigmented. The shimmers are super shiny, super pretty, super soft. Love. And then they came out with this one this year. This is the American Eagle Denim Days eyeshadow palette. Love the packaging with the denim kind of feel with the tag like they have in their jeans. And then we have the embossing in the pan, like their logo that they put on the pocket of their jeans. And I think the quality of these shadows is also very good. We've got a few different shimmer formulas in here. This shade 90s Vibes is a beautiful silver, and the mattes in this are really pretty. I think this is a great palette, so I'm definitely gonna keep both of these. I have 2 palettes from Hip Dot, the Corn palette and the Evanescence palette. I did mention the Evanescence palette recently in a video, and so many people commented saying, where was I when an Evanescence palette was launched? I didn't even know that happened. Yeah, I mean, it came and went pretty quickly, and I've not really seen anything from Hip Dot since this, so I don't know what's going on with them, but I love the packaging of these, that it's a true CD case. And this is the inside. It's a blue color story, which is not my favorite color, but I actually really like the blues in this. I think the mattes are very good. The shimmers are pretty. I don't love this duochrome. It's a little dry, and there is a pressed glitter, unfortunately, but the other three shimmers in this are really gorgeous. So I'm gonna keep this around. And then the Follow the Leader Corn palette. Oh my goodness, this color story is everything, and I love Korn as a band, so it's kind of a merch aspect to me as well. I don't love that there's two pressed glitters, and I don't love this duochrome. It's just a little kind of dry, but the rest of these shades are really pretty, right up my alley in terms of color story, so I want to keep those around. I have 3 palettes from Lunar Beauty, all of which I'm going to keep, all of which I really enjoy. So this is the first palette I bought from them. This is the Strawberry Dream palette. This is another one that I did declutter a couple of years ago, but I saved it from the declutter pile, and I want to keep it around because the quality of these shadows is very good. Like, very, very good. And I do think that the color story is pretty unique to my collection. Yeah, this is just stunningly beautiful. And then the palette they came out with this year in collaboration with Laura Lee Los Angeles, the Full Fantasy palette. This is going to be in my top 10 of 2023 for sure. Like, this color story is everything. It's got neutrals. It's also got pops of color. It's light. It's deep. The mattes are super easy to use. The shimmers, there's kind of different formulas of shimmers, a couple of duochromes. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. And then this is the newest palette from the brand. This is the Siren Sunset palette. Definitely deeper, smokier, cool toned. We've got a row of more, I would say half of this is cool tone neutrals and then half is like colorful. There are a couple of multi-chromes in here, which I think is fun. So really enjoyed using this one as well, keeping all 3. I have a couple of palettes from the brand Kylov. They used to be known as Musée Beauty, and now they're actually out of business. They've been out of business since last year, but I do have 2 palettes from the brand that I want to talk about. So they used to be an art-inspired indie brand. So this is the Van Gogh palette, just gorgeous. I need to pull this one out and use it again. I've only used it a couple of times. But I really like the formula for Kylov. Like, their mattes are just really like, almost like that silky kind of formula. So they're not overly pigmented, but really easy to use. And their shimmers are very smooth, like super smooth, not chunky, not textured. And then this is the Impressionism palette. I used this to death when I first got it. It is one of my favorite colorful palettes. Again, same like beautiful, smooth, silky matte formula, gorgeous, wet looking shimmers. I'm really sad that they went out of business because I think they had great, great formulas. So I will keep these around for the memories. Then I have a handful of like one-off palettes. Brands where I only have one palette from the brand. So this is the Desert Lights palette from Flower Beauty. I'm sure you've seen this palette before. It's pretty popular. It's a 6-pan shimmer palette and it is stunningly beautiful. These shimmers are ultra chromy, ultra metallic, wet to the touch. I really love this palette. I want to keep it around. I have the Ace Beauté Aura palette. I did buy their floral collection and I've already decluttered them because I didn't really love the quality of the mattes. But this palette I think is so good. Mattes and metallics are very, very good. Really pigmented mattes. The shimmers are really sparkly and pretty. I love the color story, so definitely want to keep this around. This is the Purple Haze palette from Rock and Roll Beauty. This was their collaboration they did with Jimi Hendrix. And I like this palette. It's not like the best palette ever. It also was very affordable. This brand has since gone out of business. So I think I am going to declutter this one. Again, I don't think it's bad. I like it. I enjoyed the looks that I got out of it, but if it's a palette that I don't really love and the company has gone out of business, I think it's time for it to go. This is one of my favorite neutral palettes in my collection. This is the Persona Identity palette, the original Identity palette. Just a gorgeous, very smooth shimmer formula, very beautiful, easy to blend mattes, a good everyday, just good go-to neutral palette. Another one that I have not used in a really long time. I like that the mattes go from light to deep. We've got this really beautiful shimmer for the inner corner. Definitely want to keep this one around. And then last but not least in this drawer, I have the Pacifica Animal Magic. I like this one. I think it's good. It's not amazing, but it is also a drugstore palette. I did receive this one in PR. I like the color story. It's mostly neutral with a couple of pops. I enjoyed the looks I got out of it. And there's a few different shimmer formulas in here, really just like standard shimmers. And then we have these like marbled shades, which are a little bit more sparkly, have a little bit more oomph to them. The mattes are more buildable. They're not super pigmented. I don't love the packaging with this like piece of plastic that comes in and out, and I get it's for like the sake of recycling. It is kind of annoying, but I'm gonna keep this one around a little bit longer because I do enjoy it. I actually found these 3 palettes from brands that we already talked about. This is the ColourPop Welcome Foolish Mortals palette that was in collaboration with Disney's Haunted Mansion. It's my favorite ride of all time at Disney World, and I really like the movie, the new movie that came out. So this was definitely an IP that called to me. And the color story is really pretty. I have not used this yet. I've only swatched it, and it's pretty. Like I said, I'm not a huge cool toned lover, but I do love the IP. So that was really what drew me to it. I have the Sigma Corderosa palette. I've not used this yet, but this was something that I got at Black Friday last year, and I still haven't used it yet. But this color story looks so pretty. I cannot wait to dip into this. Like I said, I've been super impressed with Sigma's quality, like their shadows, their shadow formula. So I really feel like I'm gonna love this one. And then this is the Ace Beauté Tropical Vibes palette, which I have not used yet. I did get this, I won it in a giveaway actually, and this looks like a beautiful green palette, and I love greens, and I love that it's matte heavy. I'm super excited to give this one a shot, so hopefully I can do that soon. All right, so these last few drawers, or the next couple drawers I should say, are my indie palettes. I'm not getting rid of any of them. They're just my babies, my pride and joy. My favorite part of makeup is indie eyeshadows. So they're not going anywhere, okay? So Gourmand Girls is the next brand I wanna talk about. I've received all of these in PR, and they're all absolutely beautiful. So I have 4 of the collaboration palettes between Gourmand Girls and Doodles by the Bunny. So let's start in chronological order. I have the Spooked palette. Oh my goodness, I remember, this is my first palette from the brand, and I love it. I love it. I like that it's neutral leaning, which I love neutrals, and all of the mattes from Gourmand Girls are more on that silky side where they're not like super powdery, so they aren't like overly pigmented, but they're easy to work with. The shimmers in this are gorgeous. There are a few multi-chromes, and all of the multi-chromes are more like neutral based, which I love. Really beautiful palette. Absolutely beautiful palette. Loved this when I got it. Then they released the Nightshade palette. This one came out this year, and it is a beautiful purple, green, yellow palette. Dark, sultry, very beautiful mattes. The shimmers, there's a couple of different styles of shimmer in here. We have more textured shimmers. We have a iridescent duochrome. We have more of a like satiny duochrome, a little bit more smooth. Really gorgeous palette. Then they came out with the Haunted palette, which I love. I kind of go back and forth between which one is my favorite. I really like this one because it is a little bit more matte heavy, and all of the mattes in this are grungy leaning, which is so fun. Like this whole little section over here makes my heart flutter. But again, it's pretty green, purple. It is similar to the Nightshade. I don't think that they're exactly the same, but I definitely think they give similar vibes. I think that they would work really well together. And again, we've got like a smooth shimmer here and then more textured shimmers here. Gorgeous palette. This one just showed up to me. I just came back from going away for a few days, and this arrived to me literally the day before I left, so I have not had a chance at the moment of filming to use this, but probably by the time you're watching this, I have used it. This palette, I'm not really a blue lover, which I've talked about before. Like, blue is not my favorite color, but I think this palette is a blue palette done well. I mean, really, there's only 3 blue shadows. This one, and this one, like these 3. This might be blue as well. It's hard to tell. But other than that, it is like a cool toned browns, yellows, just a very well done, quote, blue palette in my opinion. I'm so excited to use it. And then last but not least, I have the Warriors Wear Pink palette. This was in collaboration with Syria Soto, who is battling breast cancer. So this is a tribute to breast cancer awareness. Very heavily matte palette. I got some gorgeous looks out of this palette. And the shimmers that are in here are really beautiful, and I just love the different variety of mattes that you get in this palette. Next up, I have 3 palettes from What's Up Beauty, all of which I got in PR from the brand. This is their newest palette, which is the Dragon's Eye palette. The packaging on this is a 20 out of 10. With the texture of the dragon. I really enjoy What's Up Beauty's eyeshadow formula. Their mattes are very, very like blendable, not powdery. They're easy to create a sheer wash of color if that's what you want, but you can build them up as well. Super, super easy to use. And this palette, it has all multi-chromes in it, which I think is so stunningly beautiful and really nice for the brand to like switch up and just push the boundaries on their formulas. All the shimmers in this are really, really beautiful. So really love this palette. Then we have their 2 other palettes that they've released. They first released the Desert Monsoon palette. This was their first palette that they released. And then the Geodes palette. Both of these are just gorgeous. More neutral mattes. We do have this like kind of mauvey purple matte. And then all of these shimmers are super sparkly, but also very smooth. Definitely more on the impactful side. But we do have the shade Cactus, which is a little bit more of like a standard shimmer, if that's what you're looking for. And then the Geodes palette was the very first palette I ever tried from the brand. Really beautiful. Again, more neutral mattes. And then we have different pops of color for the lid. Really sparkly, really impactful shimmers. Really stunning. All right, we're gonna get into Unearthly Cosmetics. This is probably the brand that I have the most eyeshadows from. I don't own every single palette that they've come out with, but just about. So I have 3 of their quads from their Halloween box from last year. These are like little monochromatic quads. I think they're really fun, really different. This is the Creepy Crawly, this is the Chilling, and this is the Thirst. I love the packaging on Unearthly. They commission artists to create their artwork on their packaging, and I just love it. I just think they're so, so creative. I will say this palette is probably my least favorite Unearthly palette. The reds in this were quite hard for me to blend. It could just be me and like my skill level, but these are really nice quads, little monochromatic quads to have. I don't reach for them a lot, but of course I'm going to keep every Unearthly palette that I ever own because I would say that they are in my top 3 favorite brands of all time. I really adore everything that they do. I think the shimmer formula in their older palettes is good, but their shimmer formula in the palettes that they've released like the second half of 2023 has really improved. But I still like the shimmer formulas, and the mattes are good. Like pigmented, very pigmented, but really, really gorgeous. So these 3 quads are from their Halloween box last year. Then I have this little mini palette. This was from their summer mystery box this year, and might as well talk about this one. This was also from their large summer mystery box, Get Groovy and Spaced Out. This is a kind of a rainbow-ish palette, and this is kind of complementary. I really enjoyed using these palettes together. They're not like standalone palettes for me necessarily. I prefer having like light to deep, having some more monochromatic elements. I mean, I guess you could really stick to quads here. I think that's a really good way to like structure your looks with these palettes, but using them together was really good. And this is the new shimmer formula, and the shimmers in this are just so good. So good. I don't really know the words to describe them. They're really good. I did purchase these myself. I did purchase the quads myself as well. Then we have this smaller palette. This is the Daily Grind palette. I've actually not used this palette yet. I did purchase it, I want to say earlier this year, and I love an orange color story. Like oranges are some of my favorite colors to wear. I also really like greens. So I'm looking forward to pulling this one out. I like that it's kind of a smaller, more compact palette. We have the original Fall Magic palette, which is in my top 3 favorite palettes from the brand. Of course, this one is no longer available, but I just love this color story. It's like muted colors, very fall like it says, and the shimmers are just so beautiful. Most of these are shifting. They're very wet to the touch, very impactful, but there is one like standard metallic up here. Never getting rid of this one at all, ever. We have the Resurgence palette, which was in collaboration with Heather Austin. The whole collection was absolutely, or is absolutely beautiful. Every piece in the collection I've really gotten good use out of, and this palette is super unique to my collection. I did receive this in PR. This was my first PR I got from the brand, and I was over the moon because I love Unearthly, and I also love Heather Austin. So I was obviously gonna pick it up anyway, but this is just a fun palette. It's just fun and creative. I have the In the Dark palette. This one I bought a while ago. I think this was the winter release, not last year, the year before, I wanna say. And this is a very heavily matte palette with 2 shimmers. These 2 shimmers aren't my favorite. Again, this is the old shimmer formula. They're not as impactful. They're a little bit drier, but still good. And these mattes are so good. I remember when I created looks with this, I was very shocked at how good quality these mattes were, because it is kind of hard to find cool toned, deeper mattes like this that are easy to blend. And these ones are really just easy and effortless to work with. This is the Surrender palette. This was from their Valentine's Day mystery box from this year. Again, this is the old shimmer formula, which is still good, but I think their shimmer formula has improved since. But color story wise, one of my favorite Unearthly palettes. I definitely love neutrals, and I love neutral palettes that I can also get colorful looks with. And I do definitely feel like I can get both neutral and colorful looks. Fairy Frolic is an older palette from them. This is a very good palette. Love the color story. Again, neutrals with a twist. I can get a neutral look. I can get a colorful look. All of these mattes complement all of the shimmers so well. Like, I don't have to think hard when I use this palette about what looks I want to create. They'll just work. They'll just work very well. I have a couple of other older palettes. This is the Poison Apple. It even says Alien Cosmetics. That was their former name. I did get this one a long time ago, and I've not used it yet. So I'm hoping to get to this one soon. But this is a fun color story. And the artwork is really beautiful. This is another one that is an older palette. This is the Strawberry Milkshake. I do think this is still available. I'm pretty sure it's even on sale. But this is bright and colorful and fun. Love that. The Witching Hour palette. Again, this is an older palette. I don't think it's available. But I think this is an interesting take on a fall color story. I feel like you can use these year round. Like jewel tones, brights, really pretty. Then we have the Hauntingly Glamorous palette. This was in collaboration with Sydney Nicole. This is an older palette. I definitely don't think this is available anymore. Mostly mattes with 2 shimmers. I love a spooky theme. I love a spooky theme, so that is fun. We have the Sleepover palette. This one I absolutely love. I've used this one a lot. I really love the shade Laughter. This like white gold, super beautiful shimmer. Yeah, love that palette. I've used it so much. This was my very first purchase from the brand, the Lore palette. So it does hold a special place in my heart. Look at this artwork. Like, so fun. Medusa's head on the front. And then this color story is gorgeous, gorgeous. I love warm tone oranges. We've got some greens. You can create a neutral look. Yeah, I remember being just blown away by this palette. Blown away. I'm pretty sure this one is still available. We have the Leather and Lace, another one I would say my top 3 favorites from the brand. If I was going to create a palette myself, I would pull from this for inspiration. A row of greens, a row of warm tone neutrals, and a row of purples. That's my dream right there. The shade Chantilly right here, one of my favorite shades from the brand. It is a duochrome that is pink to white. Beautiful for the inner corner. Beautiful just in general. I remember the looks that I created with this palette. I was blown away by. Like, really blown away by. So, love that. Don't Be Jelly. Amazing. Did I get this one in PR? I can't remember. I feel like I did. But this is where the shimmer formula really started getting stepped up, in my opinion. The shimmers in this are breathtaking. There's a lot of multi-chromes. And this is a fun, colorful color story that's not too out there. Like, I don't feel like overwhelmed. I can create looks with this pretty easily, but the shimmers in this just are the standout for me. Dead of Night is a super pretty, deep, dark purple, green, blue palette. If that's what you're looking for, you will not be disappointed. Beautiful pigmented mattes. Again, This is the newer shimmer formula where they're very wet and like very wet looking on the eyes, super creamy, super impactful, stunningly beautiful. The next three are the newest palettes from the brand, or at least newest at the moment of filming. I did receive all three of these in PR from the brand. So this is Sorceress Smoke. Ooh, probably another one of my favorites from the brand. This is a neutral palette that's not boring. We've got like deeper tones, and we have this like duochrome that's got like blue, pink, purple reflect. We've got a couple of multi-chromes. Stunning. Just gorgeous. We have the Devour palette. This was from their Halloween collection from this year. Again, these three iridescent shimmers. A great addition to the palette. The mattes in this lean a bit more on the mid-tone to deep side, and the shimmers in here as well. So if you're looking for like a smokier palette, this could be a good one for you. And then we have the Fall Magic Remastered. This also may be in my top three. I love it. I love it. I love the tones in here. I love that you can get a neutral look, a green look, a mauvey look. The quality of the shadows is beautiful. The shimmers are gorgeous. So those are all my Unearthly palettes. It's a lot. It's a lot of palettes. I know. But like I said, they're one of my favorite brands. All right, another one of my most favorite indie brands is Odin's Eye, and I own a lot of palettes from the brand. So let's start off with their most recent palettes that they launched were the Christmas holiday collections from this year. We have the Hey Reindeer palette and the Snow Dream palette. So the Hey Reindeer palette is like a whimsical pastel holiday palette. Definitely light to mid-tone, but it does have this darker brown for deepening up the look. And I think I will use this really as a companion palette. So we have the Snow Dream palette here. And this is so beautiful. A little bit more neutral leaning, a little bit more traditional Christmas in my opinion. This shade Frankincense is a holographic shade. It has holographic pigments in it. It is exceptionally beautiful and just so unique. All right, and then we're gonna go back in time. This is the oldest palette that I own from the brand. Not oldest to me, but just oldest in general from what they've released. This is the Verdandi palette. This is the mini eyeshadow palette. I like this palette, but I feel like the quality of Odin's Eye has gotten so much better over the past couple of years compared to when this came out. I think it's good, it's nice. The color story is kind of for me, you know, it's not my favorite color story, but I love the brand, so I'm keeping everything that I own from them. I won't declutter. I won't declutter anything that they come out with. Another older palette from them that I have is the Alva eyeshadow palette. Color story wise, I love this palette. It is definitely neutral leaning, a little bit more on the pinky mauvey side, but we do have these pops of yellow here. The mattes are just pretty hard pressed in the pan. So they're not as pigmented as the mattes that they've had in the past couple of years. And some of these shimmers are a little bit more on the toppery side, but nevertheless, I do like the palette. It's just, I think their formulas have improved. Then we have the Norns palette. This is another older palette, but they did re-release this year with their new formula. But this isn't my favorite color story. I found myself kind of scratching my head trying to come up with cohesive looks. I think this would be a nice companion palette, and I may get this in the updated formula. That is something I'm thinking about, I'm considering. If I do, I will declutter this old one if I order the new one. Just because I love the brand. Like I want to keep things that I have from them. Then we have the Perfect Worlds collection that they came out with earlier this year in collaboration with 3 creators. The Flora Story palette with Makeup Just for Fun, the Sea Talk palette with Lauren May Beauty, and the Planet Spirit palette with Betty Jean. Love the Planet Spirit palette. I use this so much in the summertime. I'm not like a bright, colorful gal typically, but I found that creating colorful looks with this was very easy, and the quality of the shadows is just so good. Again, these are newer palettes, so I feel like the Odin's Eye quality now is just top notch. This is the Sea Talk palette. Definitely gives sea vibes. We have like the watercolors, the sand colors, and then coral reef colors in the middle. Really beautiful quality, just a fun color story. And then we have the Flora Story palette, which is greens and purples which are a couple of my favorite colors to wear. And I think this is a good one for the neutral lover that wants to just dip their toes into color. So absolutely love those ones. One of my favorite palettes from the brand is the Red Dragon palette. This was in collaboration with Judy. This was their original influencer collab set that they did. They did 2 other palettes with 2 other collaborators. I don't own those palettes and these are no longer available, but this palette is a gorgeous neutral palette with a twist. This was my first palette from Odensai and I was blown away by the quality of the mattes. They basically blended themselves and the shimmers in this are just so beautiful. We have last year's holiday palettes. Oh my gosh. So gorgeous. The Christmas Eve palette is my favorite. It's one of my favorite palettes in my collection. Let's be honest. It's one of my favorite Odensai palettes. It is just so yummy and so unique and beautiful. I'm not a cool toned lover necessarily. Like I prefer warm tones and I prefer other colors over blues, but there's something about this palette that I just think is so unique and beautiful. It's just so special. And then we have the Merry Christmas palette that also came out last year. And this one is definitely more warm tone leaning, especially the bottom 2 rows. Oh, I love the bottom 2 rows. The top 2 rows are green. There's a couple of warm greens. There's a couple of cool greens. Also so beautiful. They did re-release these this year and they sold out and they're not bringing them back. So I hope that you had a chance to pick them up if you wanted to. Then we have 3 palettes that were in collaboration with my friend Angelica Nyqvist, who is the queen of colorful eyeshadows, and she knows her color stories, and she nailed it with these 3. This is the Hella palette, her first collaboration with the brand, and love the artwork. Love the artwork, and the inside is so beautiful. A lot of greens in here. I love me some greens. We got some pops of pink. We've got some very interesting, like deeper colors down here. This multi-chrome double-sided is beautiful. Again, when I created looks with this, they were just breathtaking, if I do say so myself. And then these 2 came out this year with the Halloween collection. I did receive this in PR from the brand. We have the Trick or Treat palette. We have the Little Ghost palette, both of which have Angelica on the cover in her spooky glory. The Little Ghost palette is a little bit more of a whimsical take on Halloween. Fun, candy, childlike, a different spin on Halloween than we normally see. Love the different selection of colors in here. Beautiful. Quality is the good Odensai quality. My favorite of the 2 is the Trick or Treat palette because it has warm tones, neutral tones, a couple of pops of green. I mean, what more can I ask for? Just stunningly beautiful. We have the Sol Mana 2 palette, one of my favorite colorful palettes in my collection. Absolutely beautiful artwork on the front. And then on the inside, we have this gorgeous, bright, colorful color story. And when I first saw this, I was like, how much use am I going to get out of this? Am I going to really like the looks that I get out of it? And I absolutely was blown away with the looks. These blues and purples just read so beautifully on the eyes. And you know I love this bottom row with the warm tones. None of the shimmers in this are special shades, like they're not multi-chromes. They're all like standard shimmers, but stunningly beautiful. And then the last 2 palettes from Odensai are this collection that came out this year. I did receive these in PR. Stone and Rock, Jewels and Gem. Stone and Rock is a green, neutral, grungy color story. Oh my gosh. What dreams are made of. Definitely going to make my top 10 of 2023. And then Jewels and Gems, more of a cool toned blues, mauves. So beautiful. We have a beautiful multi-chrome here. Everything that they've released this year has been honestly so good. Like I don't have really any complaints. I found a Stray Unearthly Cosmetics palette. This is the Not Normal palette. Ooh, this is a gorgeous grungy color story. It leans neutral, but it's got some muted colors in there, mostly matte, but we've got 4 shimmers. This is an older palette. It's an older palette, but love this one. Obviously going to keep it, like I said, keeping all of my unearthly palettes. All right, the next brand that I absolutely love that I have quite a few palettes from is Nomad Cosmetics. Not getting rid of any of these, forewarning. So this is their palette that they came out with, the newest palette that they came out with at the time of filming. This is the Nomad Air the Travel palette, and I love this little 6-pan neutral palette. I know a lot of people thought it was, quote, boring. I don't. I love neutrals, and I love the quality of Nomad's shadows. The mattes are blendable, easy to use, perfectly pigmented, light to deep, and all 3 shimmers are really beautiful, smooth, sparkly formulas. Shimmer formulas from Nomad tend to vary from palette to palette, but this one, I really like the shimmer formula. I like how small it is. I like the soft matte touch. Their other small palette that came out for holiday last year is the Santa's Village palette. So I kept the outer carton because I think it's cute. This is what it looks like. This is probably one of my least favorite Nomad palettes. I still like it though, but the shimmers in this are very, very, very hard pressed in the pan, and they're definitely more topper shades, so they're not super opaque, super creamy or anything like that. And the 4 mattes in this are kind of hard to mix together in my opinion. I don't feel like they're easy to use together. So I had been using this mostly as like a 1 matte, 1 shimmer type of look and be out the door. So I do like it, but it's not my favorite palette from the brand. Then we have the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. This was one of the first, I think this is my second palette I bought from the brand, and I really, really loved it. It is a gorgeous wintry color story. The formulas in this are stunning, great pigmented mattes. The shimmers are beautiful. The Shimmer Powder Specialist is not my favorite. It's a little bit drier. It is a iridescent duochrome, but it is a little bit on the drier side, but all the rest of the shimmers in this are beautiful. This has been discontinued, unfortunately. Then we have the Royal Europe palette. This came out at the beginning of this year. This one I did receive in PR from the brand. And this is a jewel-toned lover's dream. The mattes are definitely more mid-tone to deep, if that's what you're looking for. And these shimmers are all multi-chromes. They're not like the strongest shifting multi-chromes. I'm trying to see if I can show you in here. Yeah, see, like that one's pretty nice shifting. You can see in the mirror, it's like a gold, but it's like a cranberry purple here. But very smooth. The shimmers are very smooth, like not textured, not chunky. So that one is beautiful. Fête de Provence, one of my favorite palettes. I'm pretty sure this one is being discontinued once it's sold out. I remember seeing this color story sneak peeked on Instagram, and it took my breath away. Like literally I gasped at it. It is just a beautiful springtime color story. We've got warm tones, we've got cool tones, and we have this beautiful pop of yellow in the center. The shimmers in this vary. Like these 2 are like the standard really good shimmers from Nomad, and these 3 are a little bit more on the subtle side, but really beautiful. Nomad Hudson Valley, I did receive this one in PR as well. Love the texture of like the paper bag on the outside. And then on the inside, we have this perfect fall color story. This is definitely more matte heavy. We only have the 3 shimmers in the middle, but these shimmers are super smooth and sparkly, and all of the mattes in this are very good. Very, very good quality, super pigmented. We have the warm tone side, we have a cool tone side. Love it. Okavango Safari. This came out this year. It was in my definitely my top 10 of the palettes that I tried halfway through the year. I did a ranking. Love the packaging with this faux suede detail. And then on the inside, we have this gorgeous color story that is neutrals with a row of greens in the middle. And I love that these greens are warm greens. I don't love cool tone greens or like mints, but these types of greens are really, really nice. I love that all the shimmers are really smooth and pretty, and I like the embossing in the pan. I like the different like swirly shimmers that reflect the animals from the safari, so love that palette. We have the Verona palette. This one opens double-sided. This one also came out for Valentine's Day this year. We have the love side and we have the death side, both of which are stunningly beautiful. The shimmers in this palette are a little bit harder pressed, so they're not as impactful as I typically like from the brand, but the mattes are really good quality. And I like the packaging. Like, I think it's different. They're always trying new things. That is something about Nomad that I really love. They are like mixing it up with formulas, with packaging. They just experiment a lot, and I appreciate that. So I do really like that palette. We have the Bosque Nuboso de Monteverde palette, or the Cloud Forest palette. I always tell people if they want to try Nomad and they're a color lover, this is the palette you want to try, in my opinion. The quality of this is so good. The mattes are pigmented enough that they show up true to pan, but they're not hard to work with. And with bright colors like this, that is really important to me. All of these shimmers are really beautiful, smooth, sparkly, opaque. There is even a duochrome that is a green to pink, which I think is a very unique duochrome. But quality-wise, one of my favorite palettes from the brand. I'm not a rainbow, like bright, colorful lover. Typically, like I wear these shades, but my preference, like if I had to pick my favorite shadows, I'm typically gonna choose neutrals. So that is why the Haunted Europe palette, I think this still stands as my favorite Nomad palette. I love the theme. The spooky theme is everything. This was my first palette from the brand, and this color story just speaks to me. We've got neutrals with a twist, cool tones, warm tones, greens. We've got some purples. This formula, I would say the mattes and the shimmers are a little bit more on the subtle side, but for some reason, I love it. I just love this palette. It might be also partly nostalgic because it was my first palette from the brand. This is not currently available, but apparently they're bringing it back. So that's exciting. And then another new palette from the brand this year is the Ghost Town USA palette. This was their Halloween launch for this year. We also have that lenticular cover. It is based on the ghost towns across the United States. And by the way, Nomad is an indie brand that bases their different collections around different destinations around the world. This palette is gorgeous, quality-wise, top-notch, pigmented mattes, beautiful sparkly shimmers that are smooth. We have like a brown section, which I always love having a neutral look out of a palette. We have this more like dusty blue, and then we have some greens. So love this one. And those are all my Nomad palettes. All right, the next brand we're gonna talk about is Blend Bunny. I own every single palette that they've released except for their little quad of multi-chromes. I don't own that, but their full-size palettes, I own them all. So let's talk about them. Not gonna get rid of any of them, just forewarning on that. So this is the Machina palette. This is their newest palette to their collection. I like this color story. I've heard mixed things, like people don't like it, but I actually like it. It's a bit weird, but I feel like it fits the theme. And I forget what was said. I've been filming, honestly, for like 10 hours, so if I start to get a little delirious from here on out, I do apologize. But this is like the life side, and this is like the AI machine side. I feel like that's what was said about it, but I like it. I mean, I like it. I like Blend Bunny's mattes. They're some of my favorite mattes in my collection. Their mattes are just unbeatable. And I like the shimmers in here. I'm still playing with this palette. I'm still testing it out. I don't have my final thoughts, but yeah, just wanted to show that one to you. Then we have the Dollhouse palette, a really gorgeous neutral palette with a twist. She called this the neutral palette for the colorful lover, or the colorful palette for the neutral lover, which I totally agree with. This is where the shimmer formula started to get stepped up for me. We have these gradient columns that she's been doing, but we've got 2 shimmers per column, which I think is really fun. And I gotta pull this one out. I haven't used it in a while, but it's very, very good. The Forget Me Not palette is one of the palettes she came out with this year. It's an eye and face palette, and it's meant to be used kind of for all over the face. You can use these as cheek products. You can use them on your eyes. It's mostly neutrals, and then we have a row of shimmers that can be used as highlighters or on your eyes. I actually love these for the eyes. I think they're so beautiful, very smooth, very impactful. I don't love using these mattes on my face. I've not really come up with a combination of shades that I like as like a bronzer, and I don't contour my face ever, but I'm definitely happy to have more neutral mattes from Blend Bunny because, like I said, I love the matte formula, so I'm not gonna complain about that. This was my very first palette I got from the brand, and it still stands as my favorite. This is the Blends palette. It is an entirely matte rainbow palette. This is a palette I take with me every time I go to a dance competition because I am a professional dancer, and I need this with me when I travel so that I can use it for any look that I may be doing as a dramatic look, or even using this bottom row for a neutral look. It is just the most beautiful matte formula. It's just the best. It's the best. We have the All Done Up palette, which is her most neutral palette. Well, I guess you could say the Forget Me Not is also a neutral palette, but this is a gorgeous glam neutral palette. And I don't think this is a boring neutral palette because we have this row of like cool tone neutrals. We have this row that's definitely green leaning on the eyes. This shade Shine, it is just stunningly beautiful. And I love this because I love neutrals. It's a beautiful neutral palette. We have the Surge palette next. This is an older palette from the brand, and I'm pretty sure this is being discontinued. It has a row of neons, which definitely makes it stand out. And then we've got more of these grungier tones. These shimmers are not my favorite from the brand. I think the shimmer formula has improved since this palette was launched, but I do like having it in my collection. Then we have the Primal palette. This one is discontinued. It has been discontinued. It's kind of, in my mind, an extension of the Blends palette where we've got rainbow tones, but there are different undertones and different tones in this than in the Blends. And of course, we have a row of shimmers that are a little bit more mid-tone to deep. We have a large pan white, a large pan black. This is definitely more of a tropical theme, but love it. Love it, love it. Sugar and Grunge came out this year. This has to be one of my favorite palettes from the brand as well. I love it so much. It is based on like 90s, 2000s teenage version of Maggie, who is the owner of Blend Bunny. And we are back to our gradient columns, light, mid-tone, deep. We've got some pastels. Always love having pastels, especially from Blend Bunny, because their formulas are great. So love this one. Sickly Sweet was their Halloween release from this year. Again, a quote pastel palette, but I feel like this is a pastel palette done really well because we have mid-tone and deep tones that I can create full looks that I like to wear with this formula. And we've got some pops of shimmer, which are really, really beautiful. And then last but not least, we have the Lure palette. This is like the blue, purple, green palette, the mermaid palette, if you will. The shimmers in this are very beautiful. The mattes are great quality. I would say color story wise, this isn't my favorite palette, but these are just not tones that I tend to reach for first, like if I have my choice. But if you like this color story, the quality is phenomenal. The next brand I want to talk about is Glamlite. I have quite a few palettes from the brand. I really got into Glamlite this year. I love their eyeshadow formula, and I love the IPs that they collab with. They did release quite a lot this year. It was a little overwhelming, but honestly, I love their eyeshadow formula, especially their shimmers. They're so pretty. Let's start at the top of the stack. This is the Ghostface Lives palette. Scream is my favorite scary movie. It's one of my favorite movies just in general, so I had to have this. And I really like this as a cool tone palette. It's a really good cool tone neutral palette. It's done well in my opinion, where there is still variety. I feel like this is a better version of the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. It goes from light to deep in the mattes and the metallics, which Glamlite doesn't always put lighter mattes in their palettes, so I do appreciate having a lighter gray matte that I can use as a blending out shade, and the shimmers in this are just so beautiful. They have some like iridescent shifty shades, and they're just gorgeous. The Dirty Martini palette. This was my very first palette from the brand, and I really like it. I haven't used it in a really long time. I would love to pull this out again, but it is a green monochromatic palette. But again, I feel like it's done well in the sense that it's not all like the same look that you're gonna get out of it. The shimmers in this are ultra sparkly, ultra smooth. This is a good one. I definitely wanted to get the brown like neutral palette from this collection. I forget what it's called, but I missed out on that one and I kind of regret it. All right, then we have the Crazy in Love palette. This was a collaboration with Chucky. I love the horror themed collections, you guys. I think they're great. I think they're fun. Lenticular cover, which they've been doing on quite a lot of their palettes. Also, like Glamlite's theming and packaging is so good, like so fun. This is another cool tone neutral palette, but definitely more on the deeper side. I would have liked a little bit more variety in the mattes. We do get one like mid-tone matte. The shimmers in this are just beautiful, and the looks I got from this, honestly, I loved. Like, I loved so much. Then we have the Strawberry Shortcake Berrylicious palette. This is a really pretty pink, red, green palette. The shimmers, I'm going to repeat myself like 1,000 times with this, but the shimmers are just the standout in this. I feel like when you have like pink and red mattes, they tend to kind of blend together and almost not give a great gradient on the eyes. I don't think that's the formula's fault. I just think that's the nature of pinks and reds, but the shimmers in this are just really beautiful. I have a couple of larger palettes. So this is the Scooby-Doo palette. It's a ginormous palette. It's a weapon. It's got sharp edges too, and it's heavy. So it doubles as a weapon, which is great. This is more of a jewel tone palette. Love it. I mean, quality of the shadows is great. Great mattes, great shimmers, sparkly shimmers, and a good variety of colors. Rick and Morty, definitely one of my favorite Glamlite palettes. I think it's a colorful palette that is, I don't know, just really pretty, and quality of the shadows is great. I don't know anything about the show. I've never watched it, but I can appreciate the packaging. On the inside, we have this kind of more neon color story. And I don't know, there's just something about this color story that I think is so beautiful. It really calls to me, and it's just good. It's just a good palette. I don't know what to say. I'm losing my mind here, you guys. Help. Okay, I have a few palettes from Glamlite I have not used yet. This one is the Barbie Dream Summer palette. I got this at Marshall's or TJ Maxx for $16.99. When I see a good palette at Marshall's or TJ Maxx, I'm swiping it up. I'm sorry. I have no self-control at all whatsoever, but I am excited to try this one. I've heard from a lot of people that this is a great palette. I need to get on it. I need to get on it. There are a lot of blues in this palette, so it might not have been the best decision for me, but it was decided. And then these three are ones that just came in to me. So I ordered the Freddy Krueger palette and the Dream Master palette. We have this like more green color story. So pretty. And then we have this red color story. I'm so excited to try these. I like that they're a little bit on the smaller side, a little bit more sleek. And I really enjoy the color stories of these. I like the embossings in the pan, and I like the horror collections that they've been coming out with. And then this one literally just came to my house today. Can we talk about this packaging? How freaking adorable is this? Look, Garfield. Do you know Garfield, babe?
Huh? Nice.
Isn't that cute? Yeah. Packaging is 200 out of 10. Just so cute. And then on the inside, the color story is really beautiful. It's a warm tone neutral palette. So that's calling my name, as you probably have guessed already. So those are my Glamlite palettes. This is a one-off palette. This is the only one I have from Sydney Grace. This is the Tiny Marvels palette in collaboration with Mel Thompson. Unfortunately, Mel Thompson is no longer with us. She was a really amazing creator, and she created this absolutely beautiful palette. I did rank this as my most favorite palette that I tried last year. I got this as a gift from a subscriber, Renee. Thank you so much. The formula of these shadows is honestly like my perfect formula. I definitely want to try more from the brand. I just was obviously just buying so much makeup from other brands that I didn't get to it. But the mattes are like a really good pigment level, very blendable. The shimmers are that smooth shimmer. So they're not like sparkly or textured, very smooth. Love this palette so much. I have 3 palettes from Game Beauty. This is a brand that I tried for the first time this year. This is the one that I tried first that I bought myself. This is the Elemental Blast palette in the Geo colorway. Love this palette. Love, love, love this palette. If I was not a makeup YouTuber and I didn't have an insane collection, and I had like maybe 4 palettes, this is one that I would want in my collection. I actually really like the matte formula from Game Beauty in these Elemental Blast palettes. This one is in the shade Pyro. This one I did get in PR. I got this one in PR as well. They're like very silky, more buildable mattes, but really beautiful. And I like the light to deep in the mattes here. The shimmers are really smooth, really impactful. Absolutely gorgeous. This is the Metaverse palette. This was their Persona 5 collaboration. I've only used this palette once, but I will say I definitely feel like there is a quality difference between these 2 palettes and this one, both in the mattes and the shimmers. They're a little bit drier and thinner in this palette, but I've only used a handful of shades, but I will continue using them to let you know my final thoughts on them. But yeah, of course, gonna keep all 3 of these. I have 1 palette from Lethal Cosmetics. This is the Teresa is Lethal palette. This was in collaboration with Teresa is Dead. Love the artwork on the outside, being abducted by an alien. That's always a good time. And then on the inside, we have this beautiful, cool toned color story. And I love the shade TV Dinner. I love the shade Space Trash. Those 2 shimmers are just standouts, and I love Teresa. She is one of my favorite YouTubers. I've met her in person, and she is incredibly kind. So I always love supporting creators that I love. So really enjoy this palette. I have 2 palettes from Shroud Cosmetics, also from another creator, Baddie Bean. I have met her in person. She is also so sweet and kind and honestly stunningly beautiful in person. We have Halloween, we have It's Freakin' Bats, both of which are stunningly beautiful as well. Great quality mattes, very like blendable pigmented mattes. The shimmers are ultra smooth and wet looking on the lid. Halloween has some special like multi-chrome shades, and It's Freakin' Bats has more like standard shimmers. All around, both beautiful palettes. and really, really good ones in my collection that I will not be getting rid of at all. So I didn't, well, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. I didn't go crazy this year for Black Friday, but one of the brands that I did shop from was Fantasy Cosmetica. So I did previously own 2 palettes from the brand, 3 palettes from the brand rather, I'm sorry, and I ended up buying the other 3 from the brand that I didn't already own. So these are the 3 that I previously had prior to Black Friday. I hope I'm making sense, you guys. I am literally just blabbing at this point. But the first palette I tried from the brand was the Rogue palette. This is gorgeous. I also included this in my winter palette favorites because it's giving winter. It is giving winter. Cool tones, Ice Queen. Fantasy Cosmetica shimmers are so gorgeous, so gorgeous. The mattes are good too, but the shimmers are, in my opinion, the standouts. The Warlock palette I did receive in PR from the brand. One of their palettes that they released this year. A little bit grungier. Love this color story. Love the looks I got out of it. And the Fighter palette I did purchase myself. This is their most neutral palette, which, you know, I love. This color story is, it's everything. It's everything, it's everything and more. So, of course, holding on to all of these, not getting rid of any of these. I already said that, but just reiterating. These 3 are palettes that I picked up during Black Friday. So this is the Sorcerer palette. They have updated their packaging, by the way, in terms of the artwork. It's a little bit clearer. And they all have like stained glass inspired artwork. So this is like pinks and blues. Oh, this is going to be fun for springtime. Looking forward to that. We have the Bard palette. Ooh, warm tone neutrals. That's what I'm talking about. Got a couple of pops of color as well. When I get to testing all these, I will do a Fantasy Cosmetica palette ranking. I know a lot of people have asked, like, what's my favorite palette from the brand? I don't know. I haven't tried enough yet. And then the Druid palette was their very first palette that they came out with. And this is a grungy dream. Yeah, they just do a great job from the packaging to the color stories to the theming. They're a fantasy-based indie brand. They're living my fantasy, that is for sure. And the other brand that I shopped from on Black Friday is Bella Beauté Bar. They are slowly becoming one of my favorite brands. I think they do a phenomenal job. This is the first palette that I bought from them. This is the Star-Crossed Lovers palette. This did come out for Valentine's Day this year. I like this palette, but I feel like the palette that I tried later on in the year, the quality difference is definitely apparent, but it's particularly in the matte shadows. They have updated their matte formula. I like this palette. It's pretty. The shimmers are very, very stunning. And the mattes are good. Their mattes are good, so. But the recently de-influenced palette, oh my goodness. The mattes in this are absolutely incredible. Some of my favorite mattes in my collection. I wish there was just like one lighter matte that I could use as a transition shade. And of course I can reach into another palette, but I want lighter mattes in this formula. And I did pick up some more palettes, so hopefully I'm gonna get some lighter mattes in those palettes. But the looks I got from this palette are just breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. So these 3 are the new ones that I picked up. So the Basic Witch palette, I had FOMO. I had to get it. So this does have a couple of lighter mattes. Definitely looking forward to using those. This palette is beautiful. It's a little bit more, it's not overly bright, but it does have kind of a brighter feel to it. This is their newest palette. This is the Bejeweled palette, and it is a jewel tone palette. Again, more mid-tone to deeper mattes, but I had to get it. This was just calling to me. The shimmers, oh, they look so pretty. I just want everything that they come out with. Let's be real. Let's be real. I was thinking of buying their all matte palette that they did a collaboration with 2 creators. I can't think off the top of my head. I was thinking about getting it because it was on sale, and of course I want more of their mattes. Let me know if I should pick it up. Is it worth it? I feel like it's gonna be worth it. And then I also got the Smoky Glam palette. This was one, honestly, this came out a while ago and I've not stopped thinking about it. I've been having like nightmares about it, like it being discontinued, and I can't get my hands on it, so I just decided to bite the bullet. It was not even on sale for Black Friday, but I still needed it. This is quite a large palette, but it's very heavily matte, and I want more of their mattes. That's what it comes down to. And Angelica Nyqvist, she can convince me to buy anything, and she raved about this palette, so I didn't have a choice. I had to buy it. All right, we're in the home stretch here. We only have a handful of palettes left to talk about. I have 2 palettes from Adept Cosmetics. They did a collaboration with Heather Austin. The shimmers in this are incredible. Some of the most impactful, sparkly, shifty shimmers in my collection. They are wet to the touch. They're almost cream shades. Like, they're squishy. If you want like the ultimate sparkly shimmer, this is a good palette to go to. And then I have the Amunet palette. This is the light version. I like this palette a lot. I prefer the Heather Austin palette, but I do like this palette. I created some gorgeous looks with it. Purchased both of those myself. I only have 1 palette left from Laura Lee Los Angeles. I used to own the original Nudie Patootie, but I decluttered it. I much prefer the Nudie number 2. This one is such a beautiful neutral palette, but it has a couple of pops, like a purple, a pink. Phenomenal quality, really easy to use. We have some more standard shimmers. We have some more impactful shimmers. All right, my camera battery's flashing. Let's run through these. Berries and Cream and Latte palette from Dominique Cosmetics. Man, these are old, but they're goodies. Like oldies but goodies. A beautiful neutral palette with a couple of pops. Berries and Cream, very good. I've not used either of these in a really long time. I probably should, just to make sure that they're still working for me. And then I have 2 newer palettes to my collection from 2 indie brands that are new to me. This is the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. I've only used this palette once, but I really enjoyed the looks that I got from it, or the look I got from it. I love the color story. The shimmers are very sparkly. So beautiful. And last but not least, I have the DD Signature Jingle Bell Ruby eyeshadow palette. This was their Christmas release for this year. The mattes are good, but the shimmers are the standout in this. Like super fun shimmers, so. Okay, I'm gonna total up the number of palettes. I didn't declutter very many, and I kind of knew that that was gonna be the case, but I can at least give you an idea of how many palettes are in my collection now. All right, so I totaled up the palettes. I'm only decluttering 12, which again, is fine. I didn't expect to really declutter any more, but these are the ones I am decluttering from my collection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm missing one. I don't know where it went. Guys, it is so late at night, but anyway. These are some of the ones I'm decluttering, and I am keeping 227 palettes. I'm okay with that. I have enough space to store them, and I really enjoy my eyeshadow palette collection. They're just like the pride and joy of my life, which may seem kind of lame, which is kind of lame hearing myself say it. But anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me your thoughts down in the comments. Like, I would love to know. Let me know. But be kind. All right, and that is it for this massive eyeshadow palette collection declutter video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to know your thoughts on any of the palettes that are in my collection. I have a lot, obviously. And yeah, just let me know your thoughts. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. I really love hearing from you guys. So this is probably one of my last videos of the year. So I hope you have a wonderful new year, a wonderful holiday season, and I will see you next year. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, and I'd love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.